But let's go ahead and try them. We did pretty good with these, so let's try. One thing at a time. So let's start with just the translation part. That's the first little group here. Well, this time, notice we're going to start reverse. We're going to start with x. That's okay. That means we're just going to start with x then. The varies directly means I should have my equal to and my k. And then the directly means what should be directly next to that k is a y. And that's it. That is step one, translate. And we did that. Now, step two, now that we've translated, is to actually use our equation, which means I need to plug in an x and a y and figure out what k actually equals. Well, they gave me an x of 10, so I can go ahead and plug in that x is 10. And what else did they give me? They gave me that y is 7, so I can plug in a y of 7. And again, I'm trying to figure out what k is, so I can't plug in anything for k yet, but I can plug in the 7 for y. So now the question becomes, how would I solve this thing for k? Well, what's in between the k and the 7 that you're not seeing? Well, those parentheses, when you plug something in, mean you're multiplying the 7 and the k. Even though you don't see it technically, that means you have a 7k there. So, and on the other side we had our 10. So how do you solve this thing for k? Well, you do the reverse. You divide both sides by 7. And that would give me k equals 10 sevenths. Now, the question is, what do you do with k once you have it? Well, it's not pretty. It's not great. You have to take your k and plug it back into the original, wherever there's a k. So we're going to go ahead and plug in k. Plug in k. So now we have a new equation. You still have x equals, but instead of k, we're going to plug in our 10 over 7, and we're going to leave the x's and y's blank like before. Now, we're not done. We've got an equation. Now we need to find one more piece of information. Now they're going to give me one more x. So they gave me an x of 50, so I can plug that in. Well, if they gave me an x, notice that must mean that they're trying to get me to find the matching y, which is what they're trying to do. So how do I solve this thing for y? Well, we need to get rid of the 10 sevenths in front of the y. So the first thing I would do is multiply both sides by 7 to get rid of that division by 7. So what that will do is get rid of dividing by 7 by multiplying by 7. Now, what that gives me on the left-hand side, though, is 7 times 50 is 350. And on the other side, be careful, you still have a 10, you have a 10y. So your last step would be to divide both sides by 10. And that would get you that y equals 35. And that's your final answer. These take quite a bit of practice just to get used to, but the steps are always the same. Let's take a look at the next problem. The next problem, we're going to start out with that first little piece which says h varies directly as the square of m, and we need to translate that. So that'll be our first step. Well, we're starting out with h. Remember that the varies directly means I should have the equals in the k, and directly next to it, whatever's coming next, which is the square of m. Well, that just means m squared. Now notice that's all we needed to do in our first step is to just translate this into an equation. Now I need to plug some stuff in. Well, in the next little part, they tell me that h is 15, so I can plug that in. And I have my equals. I don't know what k equals yet, but we're going to figure that out. And then they also tell me to use an m equals 5, so I can replace just the m with 5. Remember, though, that the m is squared, so it needs to be squared when you plug it in as well. So the first thing the order of operations is going to have you do is do that exponents first to take care of the 5 squared. Well, 5 squared is going to give you 25. So that will give me a 25k. So the question is, how do I solve for k? Well, we're going to get rid of the multiplication here by dividing both sides by a 25. So what that does is that gets me a k equals 15 over 25. Almost. The only problem with this value for k is that k is not reduced. It's a fraction. It should be reduced if it can be. So we're going to divide both the top and the bottom by a 5 to reduce it. That will reduce the top to a 3 and the bottom to a 5, and that gives me that my k is 3/5. Now, what do I do with it? I need to go back up to the original and plug it in. So this will give me a new equation of h equals, we just said that k is equal to 3/5. So let's plug that in. K equals, so we'll replace the k with 3/5. And the next part was that m was squared. Okay, so we basically just used all that information to find k and plug it back in. Okay, now we're not done. They wanted one more thing. They said, okay, well, find h when m equals 7. So now plug in m equals 7, and we're going to find h. So we'll plug in m, and we're going to plug in 7 there for m, like they asked. So let's leave the 3/5 that we found for k, and now let's replace the m with 7, like they asked. Remember, the m is squared, just like before. So we've got the h equals 3/5. We've got 3/5. H equals 3/5 times 7 squared. Well, 7 squared, we have to do the exponents first, is 49. But we're multiplying fractions, so let's write the 49 as a fraction as 49 over 1. How do you multiply fractions? You go straight across the top and straight across the bottom, because nothing reduces. So 3 times 49 will get you 147. 140. Actually, it should give you, let's see, 49 times 3 is 147, I was right. And over 5 times 1 on the bottom will get you 5. Now, 147 over 5 does not reduce at all, so you are stuck, but that is your final answer, that h equals 147 over 5. Let's try a couple more.